much ado, I have the honor of inviting Shri R. Chandrashekhar, President of NASSCOM and the doyen of e-governance in India. And our mentor, our guide, let me just tell you that eGov magazine, which has completed 10 years, and eINDIA has completed 10 years today, it wouldn't have reached without his encouragement in the baby days of eGov and eLets. And I remember that Sir was in the early stages of formulation of NEGP, and I went to him to ask an advice that I'm thinking about giving us encouragement and motivation always. And I know that many in India and outside India, they all are in the field of governance because of him. So there could not be a better person with us to be a chief guest with us at the decadal year of India, and who can actually give us a overview on the past decade for e-governance in India and the next decade of e-governance of India. So for our chief guest for this dinner and award function, I invite Shri R. Chandrashekhar on stage. Kindly give him a big hand, please.
Good evening. At the end of 2 days of this event, it's probably a good time to just take a step back and look at the whole idea of digital India and what it means to all of us, what it means to the whole country. Ravi talked about the last 10 years of eINDIA, and to my mind, eINDIA and digital India are different words for expressing the same idea. And the growth of eINDIA and the growth of e-governance have actually run on parallel tracks. And the fact that eINDIA is around and is going well after 10 years only shows that there is a lot that is also happening in the area of e-governance. But digital India is about a lot more than just e-governance. It's about e-enabling or empowering the entire country. So let me just get a view of this audience here. How many of you here think that digital India is going to transform the country, is going to transform the country in a major way? Please raise your hands. Well, there are a lot of hands up, but let me, just for half a second, if I can get you to keep your hands up, and I'm just taking the cue from Shikha's address that it's a part of the fitness program. So if you can just hold your hand up for a moment. How many of you who have your hands up believe that this transformation at a dramatic level is going to happen within the next 10 years? Well, that's really encouraging. How many of you believe that we'll see dramatic change even within 5 years? That's still quite a lot. Okay, now I think it's only natural that in a forum like this, all of us are in the business of technology, either implementing it, reporting on it, analyzing it, or in multiple different ways. So it's only natural that we have a certain view, and we have a very optimistic view of the power of technology to change our lives, to change the lives of everybody in the country. But sometimes it's also important to remember that the views of people outside of this charmed circle are not necessarily coincidental with this view. For one thing, for them, technology is just a means. And the bigger question for this set of people is about what does it mean when we use buzzwords like digitally empowered citizen? Every citizen is going to be digitally empowered. The mobile is going to be the instrument of empowerment for every individual in this country. First and foremost, the question outside is this a real vision or is it just a pipe dream? And the second is, even if you accept those words, what does it actually mean? And I do believe, like most of you here, that this is certainly an idea whose time has come, and there is a conjunction of many events which has actually made this possible. What has given us this belief, arguably, is not so much what has happened in e-governance, but what has actually happened in the whole mobile space. And over the last decade or so, we have actually seen the country going from 100 million to 1 billion subscribers. We've seen progress in the sector going at a faster pace than anywhere else in the world, with no exceptions, including China. And while many things have happened in the telecom sector, the fact that this is one sector where we've adopted and imbibed technology within the country on a scale which touched 1 billion people gives us the confidence that we can not only do it, but we can actually do it at a pace which is faster than anywhere else in the world. But there are also many other things which have come together, and this is a conjunction of the planet. It's not by anybody's grand design, it's not by somebody having planned this, but actually many things have just happened to come together to present us as a country with a unique window of opportunity, which is truly unprecedented in the history of any country. It doesn't mean we'll get there for sure, it doesn't mean there are any guarantees, but it certainly means that we have all the ingredients, and putting them together and making it happen is the responsibility that all of us have. I've mentioned already about the mobile revolution. The entire IT industry, the growth of the IT industry, we have an IT industry which today commands a 52% market share in the global sourcing industry. It's the envy of many countries in the world. It's present in more than 78 countries, close to 80 countries across the world. It actually enables more than 95% of Fortune 500 companies to remain competitive. That's the kind of power that this industry has. That's sitting right here. The third is the whole evolution of technology, which has happened globally, not just in terms of mobile technology, but also the advent of social media, the advent of cloud, and the advent of a whole lot of such technological trends, which have actually democratized technology and enabled a very large number of people to adopt technology and use it in multiple ways, and brought it to a price point which actually enables 1 billion people at the kind of economic level that we have in the country to be able to use it. The other most interesting thing which has actually come at the same time is the IT industry has, of course, well renowned for its services all across the world, but if you look at what are the gap areas, it hasn't been a great creator of products, or it hasn't really generated a whole lot of IP in the last few years of its growth. But today what has happened over the last 3 years, we have become suddenly a country which is the third largest startup ecosystem in the world, the third largest. And all this has sprung up like a wave, like a tidal wave, in just 3 or 4 years. It's not only the third largest, it's the fastest growing anywhere in the world. Again, shades of what happened in the mobile revolution. So you also have this whole tidal wave of young entrepreneurs. And every time I see them, it shocks me how young they are getting. It was not just people who started out their careers, it was people who were in colleges. And day before yesterday, I was in Pune at the Gaming Forum, and I found a whole lot of school kids in class 10 who were making some amazing stuff. So all of this has actually enormously increased the power and potency of the industry. But if you think about it, there's a big paradox here. We have arguably what is the most potent IT industry anywhere in the world. But on the other side, so far at least, the impact on the domestic economy, on the different sectors within the country, has been pretty limited. It has not changed dramatically the way, for example, the spread of mobile has happened. And in some ways, I would say both are responsible for this. The government, for the way it looked at how the industry can be used, and the industry which found a lot of exciting pastures across the world and did not see the domestic market as necessarily being so attractive. So why should we be optimistic that this is going to change anytime soon? Why should we think that all of this is going to change? And I think the answer lies in the fact that under the whole Digital India initiative that the government has put together, this bringing together of the private industry is driven by certain measures of the government, creating the infrastructure, for example. There's a huge thrust on infrastructure, and out of the 130,000 crores which has been talked about for Digital India, much of it also goes towards the infrastructure. So one of the reasons why this whole revolution did not happen earlier, which is the lack of infrastructure, the lack of access, connectivity, the lack of broadband, hopefully would get remedied through this infrastructure push. And the second is the realization, if you saw the budget earlier this year of the new government, the emphasis on Digital India and the emphasis on the startup ecosystem, I think is a very positive trend, which shows that there is a recognition of how important this is, the kind of applications that are coming up. We just saw some examples earlier in the day today, and I'm sure there were similar examples yesterday. Some amazing things that people are doing by exploiting the sheer fact that you have now everybody who is connected. And when you have everybody who is not only connected but on broadband, the opportunities and potential are immense. So how do you link all of this innovation with the idea of Digital India? That's one of the key challenges. And how do you crack some of the old problems that we have had of having a large number of languages, and how do you bring people who speak multiple languages onto this forum, again using technology? In short, how do we make the idea of Digital India not just digital government? What are the different elements which need to be brought together? I was mentioning that, the view of just people who are in the technology business is one thing, but to really get people to adopt the idea of Digital India, the vision has to be an elevating vision in different areas. How do you get doctors, nurses, paramedics, diagnostic laboratories, health insurance companies? How do you get all of them to really look at Digital India as something which is going to transform their entire way of working? How do you get all the people in that area and citizens and patients who go to different hospitals to really see it dramatically transforming their lives? In each of the areas like that, there has to be clear goal which is set. In an area like agriculture, how do you ensure that Digital India is able to bring down the wastage in the agricultural sector, which has been a bugbear of the Indian agricultural system, by 50%, say, in 5 years? How do you ensure that the usage of pesticides, which has consequential effects on the environment, how do you ensure that that is brought down by 50%? All of these things are today possible by a creative use of these technologies. And I think it's that elevating vision which brings together people from different sectors, people who may not be concerned with technology the way all of us are, but to say, okay, if that's what it does, I'm interested, count me in. One of the big challenges in e-governance over the years has been the whole manner in which the procurement is done. And today we have a situation where, in spite of having such a large and capable industry, a lot of companies, in fact, are not prepared to invest in e-governance. A lot of them are reporting that there are huge outstandings of even 4,000 to 5,000 crores that the industry is facing today. So the earlier enthusiasm to really invest serious money in e-governance, make the transition happen, and then recover it over a period of time has waned. This is a bit of a paradox. And these are serious issues and serious concerns which have to be addressed. Otherwise, this coupling of the vision that the government has and the capability that the industry has would certainly be adversely impacted. There's a huge opportunity when you look at the newer technologies, especially mobile and cloud and software as a service and so on, to overcome some of these challenges. And we saw some interesting examples. For example, the whole application for Delhi, which was designed to make it easy for people to hire an auto. But if you look at each of the areas of e-governance also, there are a lot of areas where by the government freeing up the space at the citizen-facing part enables a lot of this innovative industry to come in and redesign those areas, make it more accessible for the citizen in interesting ways, and make a business out of it. Because scale will not be achieved unless there's also a good business model. And that's again something that the telecom sector has demonstrated. If the entire telecom revolution had been visualized as a program to be implemented by the government or the public sector, it wouldn't have got here. It got here because of the actions of a large number of people which were driven by a framework which was established by the government. So identifying these kind of interventions and what are the areas which need to be left open for the private sector to really step in a big way and scale, and what are the things that the government needs to do to enable this and to unlock that potential and to remove the bottlenecks. That's the key, and I think a lot of the strategy that is being drawn up will need to bring in these factors. We have, recognizing all of this, what from NASSCOM we have been trying to do is to build partnerships and collaborations with different segments within the government in areas like, for example, the smart cities with the Urban Development Ministry, and with the Nat Health, which is an organization similar to NASSCOM but in the health sector, bringing together all the players in the healthcare, not just hospitals but diagnostic laboratories, insurance companies and private players, diagnostic laboratories and so on. And to say, how are we together? How are the healthcare delivery system and the IT guys together going to transform the entire healthcare sector? And then together we have also sat with the government and said, what is the government's vision in the healthcare space and how do we link these two? Because you can't have a digital India for government and a digital India for the non-government area, which are distinct from each other. If you take the case of the healthcare, for example, the whole idea of creating a health IT platform which will give every citizen an opportunity to have a record on the, his own record on the cloud, which is personally controlled by him, but which is accessible from anywhere he chooses or to anybody to whom he chooses to give that authority. These are some of the things which actually cannot be done separately for the government or the private sector. That's why a collaboration across different streams becomes important. That's not something which happens normally. That's something which has to be worked on and which has to be collaboratively built up. That's something that we have to really learn. I could go on, but the short point is that we've just begun what is a really, I believe, a really exciting journey. As a country, we have the potential to move it faster, to imaginatively combine a lot of innovation in technology, innovation in business models to make this happen, and to create in the process models which could actually be of use across the entire world in terms of how you achieve scale and speed. But I do believe that we are going to do it the Indian way. We are not going to do it the way it is done, for example, in a country like China, where it's an orchestrated program across the length and breadth of the country. It is going to be a tsunami, but a tsunami which consists of the efforts of millions of people, each one doing a different piece of it, but with some overall direction and framework which is being provided the government. In other words, what we see ahead is a crowdsourced tsunami, and we are Indians, and we will do it the Indian way. And as the song goes, Jo sabke chakke chudayenge. Thank you very much.